Awesome. Cheers, team. Thank you. What a good morning. God's moving, all right. We had an awesome prayer just before as well, some awesome worship, and just that prayer together as a church family, a whānau, and just getting ready to see, what is God doing? What is He saying? What is He doing for us as a church? And it's exciting times. And coming in, obviously yesterday, Anzac Day, so, beautiful day to go out for a coffee, but, everything's closed, so you just have to wait till the afternoon. Yeah, but no, it was good. And then, but just, around Anzac Day, it's such a powerful thing, and we're talking about people, and it's been on a theme over the last few weeks, and the first one is, how do we interact with people. Last week was how do we deal with tough people, and this is how do we do life with people and the people that we have around us. And you look at those Anzacs, you look at the sacrifice that they had, and Jesus said it, greater love has no man than he who would lay down his life for someone else. And the Anzacs in those situations that they went through, just real tight friendships were formed. They call it mateship as one of the common terms with Anzacs, and just doing life with people is just so powerful. And there's just different ways that God's created us on how to do life together with people. And it's interesting because even the army is kind of organized around it, because they've got they start off with a squad. It's about 10 guys in there, and then it goes up to a platoon, so you have about 30 to 50 people there. Then it goes up to a company, so you got around 100 and something, and then it goes up to battalion and further ones up there. And you see that the way that it's organized is kind of just patterned in to how we think. There's also there's a guy, I forgot his name, it started with D. He was a non-Christian guy, but he talked about how you do life with people, and he said, you have your group of 5. They're your real tight people, real close, and then you have your 15, a little bit bigger, then you have your 50, and then it jumps out to 150, and it goes out to 500 after that. And he said, one of his quotes was, I don't know why it's in multiples of 5, but that's just the way it works. And I kind of laugh, because when we read in the Bible, in the New Testament, it's like, mate, it doesn't have to be, stick to 5. We look at Jesus and how he modeled how to do life with other people as well. And so that's what we're going to be talking around this morning, is that Jesus had the same kind of pattern as well, that we see it. And it's important for us to see that and to recognize, who are we doing life with? And time is such a precious commodity, short, way more valuable than actual money. It's very limited, finite, it's set. And so we need to make sure that where we're placed, that we're in a place that is beneficial for us to be able to achieve our potential, what God has called us to do, but also to bless other people as well. And so the first group that we look at, that we're going to look here, we're just going to start with the 3. The 3 guys who Jesus hung out with most was Peter, James, and John. These guys they did the most life with Jesus. Jesus kind of chose them to do life with. So there's a couple of moments. One was the healing of a girl in Luke 8:51. One of the more famous ones is the Mount of Transfiguration, where 6 days later Jesus took Peter and the 2 brothers, James and John, and led them up a high mountain to be alone. And so they just hang out with those 3 there, and they see Elijah and Moses and Jesus all hanging out. But these 3 did life together with Jesus. In his darkest moment, the Garden of Gethsemane, Matthew 26:36-37, then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane, and he said, sit here while I go over there to pray. He took Peter and Zebedee's two sons, James and John, and became anguished and distressed. These three people, this tight group that we have around us, they're the ones who carry us through tough times. They're the ones who we go to. They're the ones who we spend most of the time with, that we love hanging out together. There should be, people around us who are there to help us, and they just know what's going on. They know who you are. They know what you're like. They're just like, hey, you all right? And you're like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, are you sure you're all right? Like, come on, man. I know what's going on. I know that there's something up. These are the ones that we invest the most time into, and they invest into us as well. We spend time with them, and, when it's really tough, and sometimes these are the things where it's just like, oh, it's just a minor thing. It's not that big. Like, I don't need to tell people. But these are the ones who we're able to share with. And it's funny because there's different reactions, and we all have different personalities as well. Because like extroverts, the personality types is like, man, we'll tell anyone our problems. Like, we just like love a good talk. We're way more open. Even things like this, that, our tight group might be a little bit bigger, but probably not as deep, with all of them. And then but an introvert will be like a lot less people, but the relationships will have a lot more depth to them. They'll be stronger and deeper. And then, even in our society as well, like we're very individualistic, just the way that our society is designed and how we do life is we kind of, just doing life by ourselves, and so sometimes again, this tight group, we read about how, these guys did life together, they did everything together, it was super tight, and it's just our society doesn't quite, let us be able to do that, and like our priorities, and I don't have time because I've got to take my kid to this, and then other kids to that, and then this kid to there, and we're, just life's busy and busy and busy. There's things that happen, but regardless of the context, regardless of our personalities, we still got to have these people around us. So important that we have these people around us to be able to lift us up when we're not feeling too good, to be able to strengthen us and encourage us, and just to be able to, hey, how are you going? But also for us to be able to pour into others as well. It's so important for us as people God has called us to have friendships, to be able to sow into others, to be able to encourage others, to be able to just get around and to lift up other people, to do life with other people. And this isn't necessarily, friends outside, your wherever you may be. It's like one of these three, should be your spouse if you're married. That's a good thing. It includes them. It could be, maybe your children, are quite tight just as a unit. You're pretty tight. It could be friends. It could be colleagues. Whatever it is. And sometimes some of these relationships, they might not necessarily be Christian. God can work through all things. But you got to remember at the same time is that what's the input that's coming through? Like they'll obviously know you're a Christian, and they won't be asking you to compromise who you are. The next level was the 12. So you started with the 3, and then you had the 12. It was a bigger group. This is kind of like who you do life with, who you're hanging out with. You're spending more time. It's a lot of influence there of just like, hey, we're just, sowing into them, they're sowing into you. We're just able to a little bit more of doing life together, a bit of a wider support group, a regular go-to, and just hang out. And again, because you're getting wider, it could be, there could be a group of people at like sports. It's great with kids' sports because it makes you expand a little bit. But you start sharing with people, and there's other Christians there, and then you just start talking, and you're just like, yeah, you get it, like same, like, just something there connects. And, you're able to build those relationships, and you become quite tight. Then, there'd be, in church context, in a very church context, this is your life group. This is why life groups are so important, because, you've got your tight crew, but then, you've got another crew there when stuff is going wrong, maybe in an emergency or things like that. They're the ones who can, they'll help you out. They'll be able to bring something urgently. They'll be able to take the kids, because the kids, we know each other. They know your needs. They know how best to help you. They know who you are, and they're able to support you through that time. And so that's one of our reasons too with life groups, is why it's so important, is because we do life together, but also a real growing point for us as Christians as well is just like when we have questions, hard questions, like, why is God doing this to me now? And you can be a Christian for, as long as you want. We'll always have that question at some point, right? Like some of us are like, I know I've been a Christian, I've done all this, I know I've seen good times and bad, but Lord, still, why? Why do I have to go through this now? Like, what's the point of this? Like, when's this big promise thing going to come or bless you? And it's our friends around us who are able to just come on, man, it's okay. I 100% understand it. But they'll be able to talk with you and support you and do life with you in such a way that's just able to help you through those times. And they'll know when to give you a lecture and when not to as well. Sometimes it'll be like, bro, come on, you just need to handle it. Other times it's just like, yeah, man, I know. Yeah, you can be free, because we all know that the frustrations, maybe with situations, and it's like, I don't even necessarily believe this, but I just need to vent it and to let it out, and then it's just done with, and then I can actually hear out loud how silly it is, and they're not judging you. You can just be free and be honest with them. But this group of 12 is very much a doing life together with kind of group of people. Same stages in certain ways and certain things in common. You could come from different backgrounds and different age and stages, but there's something in this group that's uniting us all and bringing us together. And just to be able to do life together is just such a blessing for them and a blessing for you as well. So it's important that we're understanding that we have different groups of people. I think the other thing is you got to prioritize as well your time. This is where we're investing into these different groups, because the next group is the 72. Jesus said that there were, he spoke about the 72 disciples. In Luke 10, verse 1 and 2. Now the Lord chose 72 other disciples and sent them ahead in pairs to all the towns and places he planned to visit. These were his instructions to them. The harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest. Ask him to send more workers into the harvest. This group of 72 was obviously pretty tight. These are the ones that they reckon that when they had to replace Judas and Acts, this is a group that they drew from. And some of the criteria for that was that they had to have done or been with Jesus the whole time. So if they were with Jesus the whole time, that means they've done a lot of life together. They knew these people so well. But, they just weren't quite as tight. They're kind of they love doing life together and hanging out and things, but, they might not be as tight as what some of the others are. Sometimes they could be old friends, who you might have been really tight with before, and you'll always have that bond. You'll always have that friendship. And every now and then you might flick a text to them or contact them somehow, or then when you finally do catch up, it's just you're never left. It's that strong bond that's always going to be there. The wording that I found around it was, they're dear friends. They're dear friends. They're still people who you love, who you love being around, who are strong influences for you, but just because of how time and things shape, we just don't get to spend as much time with them. But every time we're with them, we can still feel encouraged and to be able to encourage them as well. We look at sort of our church at the moment. We're roughly in around this area here. We're this is how our church is. We kind of all know each other. We love hanging out with each other on a Sunday. We all have those connections. If someone needs help, we're willing to come and help them with those things. But this group of people they're still dear to us. We still I think it's good to understand that, oh man, I want to be able to hang out with these people, but just to understand I don't have to hang out with them all the time. We just have a limited capacity, and just to give ourselves permission. Maybe this is more like an extrovert sort of thing. It's just I just need to hang out with everybody, but just to be able to spend time with them and hang out in different ways and make the most of opportunities. We don't have to treat them like a 12 or a 3. a group of 3, we just, when we have that opportunity to catch up, we make the most of it. When we have that chance to, oh man, I actually just had a really good yarn with, whoever after church, and it was just really cool. It was just a really good time. The next one is actually, and it's not said so many places, but they kind of jump to 120, which is kind of like your acquaintances and, other people that you know. Obviously there'll be people in your workplace who you're doing life with, and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, like I know them, but I don't have so much to do with them. And then there's the multitudes. Then there's just everyone else. And I thought this was quite interesting because this guy who talked about the multiples of 5, his biggest one was 1,500. And I was like, I wonder, as a school teacher, like if I could remember 1,500 kids' names, like that'd be interesting if I could like store it. I think it's definitely a muscle you have to grow, but it would be like, oh, okay. And so like once, those kind of kids, but you'll bump some of those kids out of your memory. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. I've got no idea what your name is. Hey, Mr. Strickland. Oh, hey, how's it going, bro? It's just, but there's the multitudes come afterwards. And we saw this with Jesus when he said, and we have to be, I'll read the Bible verse first. Matthew 14, verse 13 and 16. As soon as Jesus heard the news, he left the boat to a remote area to be alone. But the crowds heard where he was headed and followed on foot from many towns. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. That evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves." But Jesus says, that isn't necessary. You feed them. And when we read that, that follows on to Jesus feeding the multitudes, feeding the 5,000. 5,000, and they just counted men, so they reckoned it was closer to around 20,000 when you include the women and children as well. The multitudes, when you look at that, Jesus had to withdraw from the multitudes to be refreshed. And I think that's an important thing to remember too, is that, we don't have to be everything for everyone all the time. We need to make sure that we're carving out space where we can be refreshed. And sometimes that refreshing is in that group of 12, and it's in that group of 3, and sometimes it's just by ourselves. Jesus did it as well. But at the same time, that, even though Jesus was a bit gassed and he was just like, I just need a break, but he knew when to pour compassion on them and when to pull away. And he saw this moment and this opportunity here, and he decided, and he knew how he was. No, I've got compassion for them. I'm able to go a little bit further for these guys and to be able to look after them and to pull them in. In the multitudes, there's going to be people there who don't know Jesus yet. And as part of what God has called us to do is to bring them into that relationship, to show them how we can do life and do life well, how we can connect with Jesus and restore this relationship with him. To be encouraged in these areas. He wants us to be able to be in these places and spaces. When he talks about being salt and light, being the change, being the flavor, being the hope and the light, it's in these contexts that he's really talking about, being able to reach out to all those other people. And it's important for us to be in a space and to identify when we're in a space like this, so that one, we know when to shine, when we know when to, how our character comes through. It knows, the things that we do are impacting on all those around us. But also, it's important to identify, I just need a break. I just need to withdraw from this for a little while. People are constantly needing me, wanting me for this and that and the other. The boss who's just like, man, this person works so well. And you're like, I'm only working well because it says in the Bible that I have to serve with all my heart. And the boss is just like, sweet, pile it on. Just like, hey, you can take more. You got great capacity. But being able to just say, hey, no, I'm done. I just need a break. I'm not working until I break. I'm going to be wise about this and smart about this and having great wisdom. But just trusting that this is the process of it and that God's got it. I think sometimes we worry about letting others down. and those expectations in those situations. Whether it's the understanding of where we are, that if it's actually a multitude crowd, don't treat them like an inner 3 or a 12. You don't have to. It's not your responsibility. We trust God that He's got them and He's bringing people around them. But I understand that, I'm called to help them and to be around them, to support and whatever I'm needing to do. But there's also, I am allowed to just step away from that situation there. Don't have the time for it. Just to be able to understand these things. People are so crucial, so much a part of God's plan, that we're not just called to do it by ourselves, we're called to do it with others. And understanding who people are and how God's placed them in our lives. And are we balanced in these areas? What do these look like for us? What are these areas? And so some of us, I think, because if you're not thinking about it, it just kind of goes by, right? Whether you're not investing or you're getting drained from it or you're not being smart about it, whether you're just withdrawing from certain groups that you should be pushing into. Through this whole series, though, I've talked about that the Holy Spirit is there with us, and He's guiding us, and He's helping us, and He's giving us wisdom. That this is the one relationship that we have to look after the most. Get used to Him talking. When we're praying, when we're reading our Bibles, and we're saying, Lord, what are you saying to me? God, what are you speaking to me? And the Holy Spirit's able to come into these relationships, into these situations, and give us wisdom on how we carve these things out, how we're able to do these things, how we're able to be a blessing. And that is one of the biggest things. Every pastor kind of has, every Christian leader has like their buzzwords, right? Phil Pringle is, his big thing is faith, moving in faith and church planning as well as very much the C3 DNA that goes through it. Others have certain things. For me, it's that every single person would know their purpose and is able to fulfill their purpose to their fullest. That's what I love. That's one of the things that when I talk about this and just understanding when we're with people and each one of us have a purpose and a plan in this church, that God's placed us here specifically. And it looks different for each one of us. And some of us, it might be like just take us a little bit longer just to work out actually what is that? And that's just a process of, and it's just like, this is the thing where I throw stuff out all the time. I'm just like, man, you should do this. Hey, do you want to do this? And sometimes, for some of us, it's just like, oh, nah, Adam, like, oh, nah, man, I thought you knew me. But it's like, no. Like, when we start pushing into this realm, God's going to unlock things that you didn't know in yourself. And it's through everything that I've lived through as well. I've seen it in myself and others. When people have just asked me to do something, I was just like, psh. Obviously when I was younger and I had less responsibility, I was like, yeah, I'll do that, sure, let's go for it. Now you're a bit more like mature and sensible and just like, it's like, let me think about it. But pushing out into those unknown areas sometimes, God just is able to shape you and to bring you. There's definitely things where situations I've said, yep, I'm going to do it. And I'm like, yep, that was not the thing. That is naturally me. Like, I should have done it. I know that was God telling me to do it, but that was not my natural zone of where I'm meant to be. And so God wants to do this for all of us. He wants to see where you are and what you're doing and to be able to use that to the fullest. Each and every one of us. Why the body, why this value of unity in our church is so important. Each one of us working together. Our diversity is our strength, multicultural and multicultural. Each one bringing different ways of looking at things and how to do things. And it can be hard, but we get good at doing those things. We get good at having those conversations. But then also, just love hanging out with people. We just love spending time with each other. We just love oh man, like church is just cool because I can just rock up and, just everyone there, I can have a chat with anyone, or I can just, there's people there who I wouldn't normally talk to and just, get to know. There's people in different stages of life that I can just ask, hey, what did you guys do with this? And how did this happen? We can just go and to be encouraged by that. If I could have the team back up. This morning, I'm just really feeling that, You know, God is wanting, actually Rose, she's in Sparklers, and she said in Revelation, and God's asking, what do you see? What do you see? And that there's a river flowing through this place. And I talked about this metaphor before, as it just starts off as a small trickle and it's building. And God's, as he's coming through, he's starting to build into each one of us. There's an atmosphere that's building. There's things that are changing. There's people who we're praying for, you know, and we've prayed for them for a long time. And it's felt like a dry desert when you pray. Or there's certain situations where you're praying, it's just like nothing's happening in the space. This is frustrating. I want more. God, I read about your promises. I read about your situations. And the more we push into it, the more we pray into it, this river is starting to fill. This hunger that we have of just like, we're all like, understand like, this is great where we are and building people. But God's wanting another level here. He's wanting more people to come into relationship with him. He's wanting like more people to be able to have this relationship, and he's put them on our hearts to pray for. You know, where even if it's things like there's provision, just like, Lord, you said I don't have to worry about what I'm going to eat and what I'm going to wear, but right now that's taking up everything. There's other ones where there's healing there, and you're like, Lord, you healed so many people throughout the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament. Why aren't we seeing that now? This hunger's stirring. Lord, what's happening here? It's like there is something else. There's something more. God is doing something in this place, and he's wanting to pour it out upon each one of us this morning. And so this morning, as we just, we're going to spend some time, we're just going to ask, Lord, what are you showing us? Lord, what do we see? Is there areas, is there people that I need to step into? Who's my 3? Who's my 12? Who's my 72? Who's my 120? That's us right here. That answers that question. Easy. Keep coming to church. It's good. But is there life groups? Am I meant to start a life group? You know, am I meant to start a group to help other people connect when new people come in? Who's my 3 who I can trust on, lean on, draw from, encourage, build up? So let's all stand up, and I'm just going to pray.